Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca, co-founder of Xprinia. Today we have a special guest from Malaysia who specializes in team leadership. And today we would like to find out more regarding team leadership itself from Wilte. So Wilte, can I ask you what would be the most important key elements leader should have when it comes to team leadership?
Okay, so before I answer this question, right, Rebecca, I would like to ask you this question. If you have 6 members in your team, how many team members are you managing?
I'm currently managing 5. Yeah.
Very good. In fact, if you're having 6 members in your team, you are not managing only 5, but you're managing 7.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so which are the 7 members that we're looking at? Of course, I believe Rebecca mentioned the 5 members are your team members, and the six
And 6
members
is
is yourself,
yourself.
and the number 7 member is your team.
Oh, okay. So you see it from the third eye perspective.
Yes, because each and everyone in the team, or even the team itself, it's just like in the business we have separate entity. So the team, we have the goal, the mission that we need to hit towards, and of course individuals we have different vision, we have different interests that we need to take care of. So if you ask me, one of the elements that the leader or the team leader need to have is to find the balance between the performance of the team and the relationship of the member. So you need to find the balance between tasks, people, or you want to focus into the result, or you want to focus on the people. And we know that oftentimes it is very difficult for us to strike the balance. So if you ask me what is the one element that a team leader need to focus on, is to find the balance of managing the interests of your team members and the team.
So how do you find that interest to balance it out?
Okay, so first of all, of course, as every team, as Simon Sinek says, you need to find the big why behind why we are doing this, isn't it? So, like the team, why we are having the team? We team in the company, it could serve certain projects. It could serve as a project. It could serve as a team to achieve certain goals. But from individual point of view, it is very important for us as a leader to focus each and every of the individual so that they can work hand in hand together to achieve the team goals. So if you ask me, it is more towards, like what you mentioned just now, communication. So you need to understand by communicating even more frequently. And it is not just only one-way communication whereby you communicating with your team members of what is your expectation about, but it is also very important as a leader to communicate, to understand what are the interests or what are the needs of the team members. Yeah, so by understanding, having a conversation.
I see. But let's say if you have a huge team, okay, so how often do you need to conduct that kind of communication, in-depth communication to understand each other's needs and wants in the whole team to
Okay,
balance things
so I
out?
believe when
Yeah.
you come across to a large team, you are talking about different segments or different subdivisions. Is that the picture that you're looking at?
So let's say if I have this department with 40 people, okay, under me. So how do you manage everybody's wants and needs in terms of emotions and whatnot?
Okay, I believe that it is very important for us to have upfront to understand them through some behavior indicators and keep them as an inventory. So you need to know each and every of the individual as you need to produce as a user manual to understand your team members. How do they usually work as an individual? What is the best way for you to communicate with them? Because every of us, we communicate in a different manner. So it is very important for a leader to understand from that perspective first. That is the first thing. The second one, of course, when it comes towards a team, we have something we call as a common goal or common ground, right? So like, for example, what is the vision of the team? So as long as we have the big why and everyone aligning to the big why, that is the part we are able to hit towards together. That's the second part. Then when you say about the third part, how could we communicate with each and every one of them? Well, it has certain level of communication channel. It depends on what context of communication that you're referring to. Yeah.
Yeah, I do believe we have different kind of channels for different purposes. Yeah, like email, maybe is for something that's more urgent and for tracking purposes. And then chat-wise, like WhatsApp, Telegram, all these are instant urgent. That's when you need to communicate it fast and then and whatnot. So understand that speaking of communication. Okay, let's say when communication goes haywire, what would you do to mitigate a dispute between a group of team members who disagree over the responsibilities that they should bear themselves?
Okay, so I believe that you are talking about conflict or disagreement or the differences between team members, right?
Yes.
So as a team leader, the very first thing, of course, is to take a step back first. And we need to understand that the differences or the disagreement that we're looking at over here, it has a very wide spectrum. It is not necessarily saying that, all disagreement or conflicts are referring as a negative situation, but some of the conflicts at certain level, they are considered as a positive one. And we know that the differences could strive for creativity, right? So as a leader, it is very important for us to take a step back to evaluate the current situation. Whether it is affecting the team morale, is it affecting the productivity, or it is okay for us to go into that. So if let's say to put into perspective, right, I will take 3 different steps. Okay, 3 different steps to overcome the situation. The very first one is do nothing. Of course, when I say do nothing, it's not saying that I totally don't do anything, but it's more towards take a step back to understand the situation, and then is that necessary for me to take any interventions, actions to see how to mitigate or handle the situation. That is the first one. Then the second step I will be taking on is to mediate. Okay, if let's say, like for example, this conflict or disagreement, the intensity of the level has increased until a situation where it affects the productivity, it affects the team morale, it affects the relationship. So I have to take a step in to mediate. But in this second step, right, it is very important for me to understand whether or not both parties have the ability, have the willingness to sit down and to discuss about this. If both parties refuse to do that, then it will move me to the third step, which is to take charge. All right. So this is something not a favorable option, but it is a must for as a leader, because oftentimes as a leader, we need to take into the consideration of the interest of the team. So as you remember just now, we say if we have a team of 6 members, how many members is in the team? 7. Because as a leader, it's very important for us to look into what is good for the team and only take the action. So I give you a more concrete example that we're looking over here. So say, like, for example, in my team, a project team, definitely we have individuals who look into the sales figure, and another individual or a team of people who've looked into the production example, okay? So if let's say both parties have a conflict whereby the salesperson and the production people might not come across to a common ground whereby, sometimes the sales figure is a bit too big. It's a good news for the business, but not the good news for the production team. So how could they understand each other better in that circumstances? So if let's say both parties refuse to work together along and hardly come across to an agreement, this is the third part where I'll be taking charge into understand and also set certain ground rules so that the KPIs can be met, and also the teams is able to work the productivity or the result out that expected. Yeah, so sometimes it's not so nice, but we have to do that as a leader. So that is why, sometimes a leader is someone have a lot of haters. So you need to make the call. You need to make the call. Sometimes even going to the extent that, see how serious is the situation. Sometimes we may need to eliminate some really nasty action. Yeah.
Yeah, especially when you are the only leader in the team. So you have to be the both like bad cop and a good cop at the same time at the right time. Yeah. So everything, right, whatever the leaders, like what you said, everything is based on company's interest rather than individuals' interest. Okay. So because these as team effort will affect productivity and efficiency at work. Yeah. Speaking of productivity and efficiency at work, right? Based on your experience, what are the most effective techniques that you would recommend leaders to motivate their team to increase efficiency and productivity?
Okay, very nice question, Rebecca. So let's hear from Rebecca. Okay, so what is the one thing that would motivate you better?
Motivates, I think, is achieving the end goal. Yeah, the feeling of being able to achieve that, at least that motivates me if I really want it.
Yeah, so it's like, you can see the clear vision together, and then we head towards that direction, right? Mm-hmm. And then once we achieve it, the sense of satisfaction, that's the one that keeps us moving. Am I right?
Yes.
So when it comes to this situation, right, I'll break it down into 3 stages. Okay, 3 stages. Like what you mentioned just now, Rebecca, I would say that it is considering covering 3 different stages. The very first stage is before the execution. So before the execution, it is very important for the leader to share out the big why we are heading towards this direction and why it's so important, and then what is the benefit of us conducting this. So it is always important for the leader to paint the why. So if let's say we are able to align the why or the purpose, so like what Rebecca mentioned just now, it is able to drive us together as a team to execute the expected outcome that we want to. So there's a first stage. And the second stage, it is the part where during the execution, you see, oftentimes, team members will be demotivated if they find that, hey man, this task is so difficult for me to execute. I have no experience of doing it. I don't have the resources. So if you are the leader, what do? You provide the support, right? So it is very important as us as a leader to see how could we step into the picture, provide the support that team members need so that we are able to minimize down the feeling of uncertainty, the feeling of what if I couldn't achieve. So that is the second part. And of course, last but not least, like what Rebecca mentioned just now, if let's say we achieve this together, then time for celebration, okay? So the last one, I think it's very important, which is recognition. So Rebecca, so far, have you ever experienced the best recognition that you received so far?
Best recognition, I think, is the contribution of my work that actually highlights the whole entire success of the project. Yeah, at least that's for my end. Yeah.
Yeah, and then after that, people give you the words of affirmation, recognize you on stage. Is that something like that?
Yeah, so that will help me in a way like build up my confidence in what I'm going to do next.
Yes. So you see, there's one differences over here because you know why, Rebecca? You know, something different from me, instead of having the recognition as in like, you know, having the word of affirmation, for me, I would prefer people to spend more time together with me. So it's about quality time. Yeah. So, you know, if let's say I could sense that, you know, people is more putting me into the important role, or they emphasize me a lot, I believe that they will spend a little bit more time to me. But when talk about this, right, we can understand one situation whereby each and every one of us would have different way of recognize. But
yes.
Of course, the most common way that people always recognize a person is to give the word of affirmation. Rebecca, well done. You did a good job. I mean, like, this is something that's very common, but we need to understand that each and every one of us have different preference. So if let's say we really want to motivate a person, right, we need to know what is the preferred way of being recognized. As a leader, it's very important for us to know that, because if we didn't know what is the best way to recognize, at the end of the day, you'll be asking yourself this question: how come I've been recognizing my team members so much in the past, but why are they leaving my team, or why they don't feel appreciated? It's simply because we don't speak their language. We don't use the way how they like that to be appreciated. So this one, I would like to, take a reference to this wonderful book. It is by Dr. Paul White. The name of the book is The Appreciation Language in the Workplace. Okay, so if you have the time, probably you can read into this book. They say that, there are 5 different ways for us to recognize a team member. So like Rebecca's situation, it is more towards like, word of affirmation. For mine, is quality of time. And there are the other 3 more ways where you are able to recognize an individual. So probably you can look into this area and see, how you could use different way to motivate different individuals. Yeah, so this is the after part. So before, share your vision, get people aligned to the vision so that they can find the purpose of doing it. During, as a leader, it's very important for us to understand our team members' gap so that we are able to provide the support to influence them to make it achievable instead of something that they find that is so difficult to achieve. And finally, the last one is to recognize the way how people like to be recognized.
I'm just curious, right, based on your experience, which one is the most common type of recognition that people desire in the workplace?
Okay, the most common type, if let's say based on the research being done by Dr. Paul White, right, 46% of the individual, they prefer words of affirmation. Like for example, Rebecca, thank you very much for your contribution to this project. You did a good job, and I see that you have a great talent in working in this. So this is one of the common ones. And oftentimes, this is something being missed out, especially in the Asian country, or I would say that in the Eastern culture, whereby recognizing someone in a statement oftentimes people feel shy to share it out in that way. Yeah, but when it comes to this situation, right, there are some tricky part. We need to understand whether or not this individual like to be recognized only one-to-one or one-to-many. Some of them, they will find that even I recognize an individual in the public situation, they find it's a bit intimidating instead of something that they feel proud of. So we need to really understand the team members' preference, the team members' interest. Yeah. So to answer your question just now, Rebecca, what is the most common one is word of affirmation. Affirm the person with a statement.
I see, I see. Because I actually experienced like, or I rather like encounter this situation before whereby people appreciate via action. So they do something in a way to show appreciation, but the other party just did not get the hint or rather receive that kind of appreciation.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So that situation that happened is okay. Let me share a bit on that area. So what Rebecca mentioned just now is like an action to recognize a person. So that is categorized as the other way of appreciating, which is the act of service. But not everyone like act of service. Someone find that act of service is a bit awkward, but it depends. It depends. It depends on individual's preference. So if let's say you are able to deliver in a way whereby people appreciate it or they prefer that way of appreciation, and then that would bring the bonus to it. But if you do it, but it's not the preferred one, okay, let me give you a context. Like for example, okay, today, both me and Rebecca is able to speak in English, right? So Rebecca, do you know how to speak some Malay?
Yeah, can.
Can also,
Boleh,
right?
boleh.
Let's see. A language that you don't know at all, any one of them.
Okay, maybe Thai. Yeah.
Thai language. Okay, so like for
Okay.
example, Rebecca, if today I use a Thai language to communicate with you, and I don't know any other languages, and there's no translator beside us, okay? Do you think that this conversation will go on? If you drop all the technologies, then all the Google can translate, all these translation tools is not going to happen in that situation. Do you
So
think
are we
that,
in person? We are facing face to face.
where be it face to face? Yeah.
I see, but mostly, okay, based on my experience, we will use sign language or rather simple languages. I'm not too sure about you, but yeah. So there should be a way of...
There's a way, right? But if let's say I insist that I just want to speak in Thai, there's no way for us to do anymore, right?
Yes, that would be tough.
Yeah, that is very difficult. So it is very important for us to understand the common language. So one very good idea suggested by Rebecca just now is to find a common way. So like, for example, sign language. So a common way, it could be like, for example, word of affirmation is, let's say, something that Rebecca appreciate a lot, then you use the way that makes people really feel good. Because sometimes if we don't do it nicely, like what mentioned by Rebecca just now, it will bring a negative impact. It's like people don't appreciate you, even you are doing the act of service, like, using an action to appreciate the person. So it really down to the situation as a leader, it's very important for us to understand our team members.
Yeah, I do agree with you. Like when it comes to like business, be it communication or whatever, right? There's always a human element inside that you need not forget about it. Because after all, we are all humans and we need to have that kind of element inside us, to stay connected, right? So could you share with us, right? Are there any frameworks?
Framework that we are able to bring the human element into it, is it?
Yes.
Okay, I think it's back to the situation where as a leader, it always down to the situation where what is your intention and then how genuine you are when you're doing this. So of course, if you want to say that, the framework that could help, this is something that I would like to take a reference on, which you could have an inventory of appreciation language that we mentioned just now. So you could understand each and every of your team members, what is the preferred way of being appreciated. That is the first one. Second one, so that you could have this inventory as a reference point. When is the last time you show your appreciation to that individual and why you do that? So if you could track it into a more, structured manner by having what is the preference, when, and why, then after that, you could plan out even further. So it is important for us not to drop any side of it, you see. So this is one of the framework where I find it's very helpful for a leader, because if let's say, like for example, Rebecca mentioned just now, I am handling a team of 40 individuals, so many of them. So how could I remember each and every one of them? So one of the example, you could have an inventory, you could have a checklist. Like for example, in the list, you could have team member 1 to number 40, and then team member 1, what's the preference like, and then how could you demonstrate that you appreciate the person, and then when is the last time you did that? So you could have a record on that. So it is always good for us to do it into a structured manner. Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of this, right, I understand that you also hold workshops yourself regarding team leadership. During your experience, like providing workshops, right, what do you feel like? What's the biggest weaknesses or rather challenges that many participants face?
Okay, so talking about challenges about participants, right, I would put it into this acronym, BEE. So what is BEE about? The very first one that we could understand in a training setting, each and every of the participants, they would have different background. The first B, they would have different expectation for the session. And the last E is different experience in their work. So it is a challenge, or I would say rather it is something for a trainer like me to look into how could I manage this group of participants or audience well by understanding them better. So because as you know, in a leadership training like this, we would have participants from the finance department, we'd have leaders from the marketing department. So every one of them, they have different way of learning. So it is important for us to look into this so that we can find something that appeal to each and every one of them. That's the first thing. And the second part of it, which I find is very important for us as a trainer, is how could we leverage on the diversity? So what I mean by leverage on the diversity, I can give an example. So in the training setting, we would have individuals who are experienced leaders, been serving in the leadership position for many years, 10 years, 20 years, right? So if I'm going to put them into this session, oftentimes, which I experienced some of the participants, they will first come into the meeting, the training room, and sit there just like a boss. It's like, well, you're so young. I eat rice more than you eat salt. Okay, I eat salt more than you eat rice. This kind of statement. So we have participants like this, but how could we get them engaged and to leverage on them? So it is important for us to make them feel important, that their experience, their knowledge, their wisdom, if they could share in the session, it would be much appreciated by the peers or their colleagues who are attending the session together. So this is the first example. So if let's say, like example, another individual whereby this is one of the experience I have in my training session, where we get these individuals or these participants into group discussion. And guess what? During the debriefing session, right, the participants said this to me: Will, I appreciate this session. Why? Because now I only know how other department works. So, this is a very good setting and also a very good platform and opportunity for different people to voice out their experiences, their opinions, and also their knowledge. Yeah, so this is a part where how could we handle and putting everyone together? And instead of I put it as a challenge, yes, it is, if we don't manage it well and participants will just drive off. But if we are able to leverage on the differences that of the participants demonstrate over here, then that session will be a meaningful one. Yeah.
Yeah, it goes back on like understanding how they feel, how it makes them feel. Then only they are more willing to share on their part. Okay.
Yeah.
So that aside, right, could you share with us some successful case studies that you have when you train a leader to lead their team to success?
Okay, so to answer this question, I will put it into a context. Okay, so there's a difference between a leadership trainer and a leadership coach. So what's the difference between them? A leadership trainer probably will be company engaging us or me in one session. And we need to see how our session or our teaching or our sharing would make a difference in that particular session only. So I couldn't give much example or context whereby, individuals after some time later, what is the difference that they make? That would be more of a leadership coaching. But one of the examples that I'd like to share with you is in one of the team building sessions. So what happened is, I still could vividly remember in that session, they have 12 different team members. And you could see one individual significantly is the leader of the 12 of them, okay? So what happened is, without him telling you I'm the leader, his aura, his way of action, you really sense that he's the leader. But in this session, what happened and also what is turning point is in one of the activity, while his team is leading the activity, he's so focused into it but they lose. Why? Because that particular activity, right, it is very important for the participants to take in feedback. And guess what? When they were announced that, God, I lose the game, he was so disappointed and he just blamed his team members saying that, hey, why don't you just tell me earlier? We could win this game. And his team members said this to him. We've been telling you about that. You just didn't listen to us. So you see, in this one particular incident, right, after that point, that incident happened, you could see his behavior change on the second half of the session. Yeah, the first half of the session, you could sense that he's a person who, think that he is going to use his personal performance to win for the team. And until the second half of the session, instead of focusing on him too much, he is focusing on the team as a big picture. He's been playing a supporting role, is empowering his team members and giving words of encouragement, motivation. You can see the change in this one-day session. Yeah, hopefully that, after this one-day session, when he go back to his workplace, he still continue the similar behavior. But if you ask me what is the one thing that I could see or a successful case study that happened, is I would like to put this story or this example that happened in one of my training sessions. Yeah, and you could directly see the transformation of how he dealt with the team members. And at the end of the session, he said this to me, you know what, Will, I'm so appreciate. I felt so thankful to attend this session because it really gives me a reminder that I, as a leader, should empower, should show support, and to motivate my team members to achieve the goal and to listen for the feedback instead of just acting on my own. You see, though I do not know much about him in the past, I may not know about his future, but in that particular session, I could see the change in him. Yeah.
Interesting. And also just now, okay, one last question. Just now you brought up like when a person steps into the room, if eventually you know who is the leader out of the 12 person. So
Yeah.
what kind of aura or what kind of characteristics or rather traits that the person portray himself when he walks into the room is considered as a leader?
Okay, I would say that the confidence in him. He really demonstrated good confidence. The way how he brings himself, the way how he speaks. You can really sense that, usually in a company, he's the one that voices out the most. That's the first thing. And the second one, you could see that, in early of the activities, he is more of instructive. Like, hey, you do this, you do this, you do this. Yeah, so he is having a behavior that demonstrating like a person who is in charge. Yeah, so because during most of the team building session that we have, right, of course, we do have individuals like this, and either they are in the position or they are the so-called high potential to move into that particular position. But this individual, eventually, in the very beginning of the session, he already demonstrated all these traits. Yeah, so that is why I'm able to pick up that. And also at the same time, of course, to validate and to confirm that he's the leader, we say it out straight in the debriefing session. So I say that, I believe that you are the leader in the team or you're the manager in the team. And guess what? The team members or the peers sitting around him nodding. Let me know. Okay, so yes, no wonder you have this kind of demonstration. Yeah.
Wow, now I have a better understanding on those like little cues and body languages when a person like strikes into a room. Yeah, that's very insightful. And thank you so much for the session today.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. And also thank you very much, Xperinia, for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts and also some of my experiences. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. If you would like to have more of this, feel free to check out at xperinia.com.